The Signs of Life, Exploring Survival of Consciousness, brought to you by the Forever Family Foundation on the web at www.foreverfamily.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing very well, getting over that cold I caught from you guys.
Well, we share.
I know, we're very thoughtful organization, but I'm hoping that everyone can hear me clearly this evening, and hope everyone is doing well. Just want to recap a couple of things. The phone number to reach us here at Signs of Life Radio, brought to you by the Forever Family Foundation, is 631-888-8811. And we also have an email, but I want to clarify that radio@foreverfamilyfoundation.org is best used, I think, to give us your suggestions, to tell us how much you like the show, perhaps even to give us feedback on topics that you'd like to hear about. We don't have access to the email, pardon me, while we are here, but we do have access to instant messaging, which we love to hear from you. So if you'd like to instant message us at Signs of Life Radio, you can certainly reach us that way, either through AIM or AOL software. And, of course, again, you can call us at 631-888-8811. And I'm sharing that number because I have an interesting question for everyone. We had a wonderful conversation earlier today, and actually after having Hollister on last week, how she relates to music and mediumship and the vibration of song and how it can lift your vibration to maybe reach your loved one or even to put you in a meditative state to be better receptive to hearing from your loved ones. We were talking about how songs move us and how we feel a connectivity to maybe a particular song, and dedicating that to someone who has crossed over. Like for me, when my mother had cancer, we were really, prior to that, into Linda Eder. We had heard about Linda Eder. And there were a couple of songs that Frank Wildhorn had written for her that, to me, kind of demonstrate the other side. And one of them is called Home Again. And it talks about being home again and transitioning and feeling home around you. And for me, that song is a song that I dedicate to my mother. When I sing it to myself or when I hear it, I think of my mom. And I'm kind of wondering if all of you listening out there, if you have a particular song that you feel is a tribute to your loved one, we'd like to hear about that right now. So call us at 631-888-8811 just to give us an idea. You can even instant message us at Signs of Life Radio and give us an idea if there's a particular song. I don't know if you've noticed the song that opens up the show. When we were thinking of creating this radio show, when we talked about intro and outro music, the two of you kind of jumped at me simultaneously saying, train, we want the train song. And for you, that kind of represents a connection, doesn't it?
Well, I personally was just attracted to that song the first time I heard it. Mm-hmm. And I was given that Train album when it had first come out, mm-hmm. Because of the first song that's listed on it, mm-hmm. Which is Calling All Angels. Mm-hmm. But when I had time to listen to the whole album, the second song was the one that really had meaning for me.
Which is the one that opens up the show.
The one that opens up the show.
And if you do hear the whole song, it is beautiful. I mean, it really does bring you to that vibrational energy of the other side. It's almost like you feel this connectivity. As soon as you hear the music and you listen to the words, it's almost like you can feel the other side touching you.
Right, and you can also really understand the composer's contact with a larger universe.
Oh, yeah.
in his expression in the words.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, that some people, I think, write love songs with the intention of them being love songs, mm-hmm. but they sound like songs for the other side.
Yeah.
And that shows you the other side is love. You know, right. It shows that connection. So if there's someone that you've lost and there's a song that you hear that makes you feel instantly connected to them, we'd like to hear from you at 631-888-8811. Share it, and it might be a nice way to dedicate something right now to your loved one. We'd really like to hear from you. So if you give us a call, feel free to, or Signs of Life Radio. At instant messaging. Now, recapping this busy week of the foundation, besides talking about the connecting to the other side, the Forever Family Foundation is a nonprofit organization that really does bring the world of science and mediumship together. And with its goals of raising money to further science and scientific research. We also have many educational programs, lectures, and afterlife discussion groups that we offer the public, most of the time free of charge, so that we can help educate. And also we do have fundraisers. The one that we had on Saturday with Hollister Rand
was just phenomenal.
Can you share with the audience? I'm all a titter here.
Well, Bob was here too.
Yeah. Okay, Bob?
Well, we had two events this week. The Hollister Rand event was a combination of a demonstration of spirit communication, and about half of the program was dedicated to answering questions. And it's amazing to me always how many questions people have on the subject of connecting to loved ones. You know, what's it like on the other side?
Are you speaking of Hollisters? Or Roberts?
Both. You know,
okay.
Hollister.
Well, I want to recap Hollister first.
Well,
so
Hollister, so Hollister had well, she half of it was questions and answers, and half of it was medium demonstration. And I think people appreciate both. You know, to some people, the evidence is the most important thing. And to other people, they've seen a lot of evidence, but they have a lot of questions of just how this works, why it works, and what they can expect.
Right. And for someone who's not been to an event, what type of people would you say would attend an event like Fall Harvest Memories? What range? Just grieving? Curious?
No, I think everybody. I mean, but the truth of the matter was, I mean, it was meant for spirit communication. I think it's just because, and Hollister works beautifully with the mission statement of the organization,
yes,
because education is a big part of that. You know, research and education, and educating the public on mediumship, what to expect out of a medium, and how we do get information from the other side is valuable information if you're going to be a sitter for any medium.
That's a good point. It really is.
So, and you know, it sounds like, you know, she did questions and answers and then she did some reading, but she didn't. She has this uncanny talent of, if somebody asks her a question, immediately Spirit provides the answers through a communication through somebody's loved one in that room.
Yeah, and she did that when she was on the show last week, when we had brought up the difference between a psychic and a medium, and then all of a sudden someone came on the phone and then she was able to demonstrate that.
Right, and that's exactly the way Saturday went. And I'm starting to keep score on the mediums when we have... No, I'm not scoring them, I'm not rating them. I'm just saying because sometimes we do get people who are just so into their grief and they only want readings.
Yes.
And those people really do need to make private appointments with mediums and to sit with them.
Yes.
But when you go into a group, normally a handful of people get read. And that's always expected that way.
Right.
But I'm keeping score, and 30% of those people in the room got read, which is huge.
Of how many?
I don't remember the head count. I mean, the math is back in the office, but Holly just, you know, and it's not this ba-boom, 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 you know, 2 seconds of, you know, I have your aunt here who used to wear the red hat and she loves you.
Right.
She was getting into it with each person.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Speaking of Holly on the show, didn't Holly share an email with you as a result of last week's show where she gave a piece of evidence that wasn't apparent to somebody regarding a relative?
And they emailed back?
And that they emailed Holly to say they felt obligated because they didn't acknowledge it.
How
and
sweet.
Then later they found out that what she said was true, which is, you know...
And I have to tell you that from the medium's point of view, when you really trust spirit and you feel it, it's like when you smell cinnamon, it's cinnamon. You know, you get that feeling, that validation that you feel spirit and you feel and you're sensing what they're trying to convey, and the sitter goes, nope, 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 nope. It's really nice that they do take the time to get back to you to give you that validation.
Yeah, and I still really maintain it's the best kind of evidence because it rules out reading somebody's mind because they didn't know it at the time.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Now, this week we had a busy week at the foundation as well. It's so busy, I'm trying to remember what came next. Wasn't it the ADG event?
Yeah, we had we decided, you know, as you know, the afterlife discussion groups are typically very small groups, 10 people to up to maximum of 20. And we usually kick around all sorts of topics. But this time, Robert Brown had made an offer to come and address and answer, take part in the group. And of course, it was more of a lecture and a question and answer thing.
Fabulous.
And people just He just stayed, and he had
generous.
He had to work the next day, and,
wow.
and he just didn't want to leave.
He's a great teacher.
Yeah,
he really is. And even though Holly and Robert have different styles, they're both awesome teachers. And I think what Robert brings to it is the English point of view.
Yeah.
They do have. It's interesting how English mediums do have a different take on things and their presentation of that as well.
Right.
So that's absolutely fabulous. And we did a little event today.
Fran,
Fran and
we were at the town of Huntington. Rhonda Shepherdson, I believe is her name. I didn't bring my little piece of paper with me, and I left it in the car. But she puts together a wonderful women's networking day every year, and offers not-for-profits to go in there.
That's great.
And to talk about their work. And so we met a lot of interesting people today.
We did. And what's so interesting about it is when you're like at a Forever Family Foundation event, or if I have a small message circle, or way back in the day when I used to do psychic fairs, people show up to the event with the intention of seeing a medium or understanding the work. What was interesting about this was some people would walk by, they'd kind of look at it, and they'd go, what's this all about? And we'd say, well, we're a not-for-profit that deals with survival of consciousness. And well, what's that? Well, that you survive physical death. That your consciousness survives it. And they go, oh, no, thank you. Forget it. They walk away, and it's
check,
like, ooh.
please.
Yeah. It's just like, woo, not going there. But then you'd have the people that were very curious, and they were soaking up all the information. So it was really quite a challenge, because it's not your job to convert people, but it's your job to be an educational source. And if you're open to it, great. If you're not, you're not. So it was really quite a different kind of energy to be in.
Right. And as Bob points out, offering that safe environment to talk about what they want to talk about.
Right, because there were some people that kind of went, I don't know, but they took a pamphlet. Because it's almost like they were looking around them going, is somebody watching me? Is anybody seeing me? Okay, I'm going to grab one now.
Or how about the lady that said, oh, I know somebody I can take this to who would be very interested in it.
Exactly. It's her way of saying, I'm going to put this on my kitchen table and read it for myself. Exactly. But, so it was a very, very, very busy week. But we do want to thank Hollister Rand for all the time that she gives to the foundation. And to find out more information about Hollister, you can go to www.hollisterrand.com.
Okay.
And Robert Brown, who's a fabulous medium as well, you can go to www.robertbrown-medium.com for more information. I know Robert has a few events coming up in the New York area in December.
And they're both on the East Coast right now.
Yes,
so while they're here would be a good time at least to check their website and contact them. If they're booked up, at least get your name onto the waiting list, because they are so scarcely available when they're in New York.
Yes, but I do believe that Hollister does phone readings.
Yes, she does.
She does. So you can, I know this is being broadcast internationally.
Yes.
So I know that we're New York state of mind here because we are on Long Island.
Right.
But we are an international organization. And I know that you're all listening. So do know that these mediums as well, they do phone readings. So please, wonderful teachers. And we are so grateful as a foundation that they take the time to support our cause. Just a reminder, the phone numbers that you can reach us, 631-888-8811. Our foundation website is www.foreverfamilyfoundation.org. Please check it out. There's a lot to check out there, from the Signs of Life registry to events coming up in December. We have an event coming up with Dr. Lauren Thibodeau and Robert Hansen, which is our Holidays Past event that we do every year. It's really one of those events where I know if you've lost someone, and I know this is my personal experience too, and that's what I love about the foundation, is that they really understand. They come from a place of understanding of grief and support. And usually around the holidays, there's always that one weekend day where you hear about other people going out to holiday parties or a restaurant to celebrate the holidays, and you're just not in that holiday kind of mood because you're missing that loved one. What better way to spend it than with two mediums who have the right intention about this work. Dr. Lauren Thibodeau is a certified medium with the foundation. Robert Hansen is one of the originators of on the Medium Advisory Board, really set the pace for the foundation very generous to the foundation. So it's really a great event. Holidays past. You can find out more information about that by going to www.foreverfamilyfoundation.org. Coming up after the break, we have a very exciting guest. Dr. Hastings will be with us. He has a wide variety of studies, including remote viewing, hypnosis, but his big claim to fame is Psychomanteum chamber, which is a very interesting concept. We'll talk more about it when he's with us here on Signs of Life, brought to you by the Forever Family Foundation. After-death communication is an accepted occurrence in many cultures throughout the world. But for many others, proof of this phenomenon is essential. And research shows that contact helps move people through loss and grief. The Sign Registry allows people to register signs that they, after passing, plan on communicating to specific loved ones. Contact the Forever Family Foundation at foreverfamilyfoundation.org or go directly to thesignregistry.com.
Has your marketing pitch been missing the strike zone? Maybe you need a new player to help your marketing efforts. At L&Rproductions.com, you'll find a team that can give your broadcast advertising the winning edge. L&R Productions has produced award-winning jingles, radio and television commercials for many businesses just like yours. Radio and television advertising work, but you need the right game plan. Make sure you're getting the most out of your ad every time it airs. www.L&Rproductions.com. We'll throw strikes for your business every time.
I would like to introduce you to the Forever Family Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide a forum where individuals and families who have suffered the loss of a loved one can turn for support, information, and hope. We believe in the continuity of the family, even though a member has left the physical world. The Forever Family Foundation is a joint effort of scientists, research mediums, and interested people who support the premise that life does not end with physical death. We wish to prove that the bond of the family cannot be broken even by death. We invite anyone who's trying to cope with the loss of a loved one to contact the Forever Family Foundation at 631-425-7707. That's 631-425-7707. Or you can find us on the web at foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
Welcome back to Signs of Life, brought to you by the Forever Family Foundation.
And welcome back. I'm your host, Angelina Diana, along with Bob and Phran Ginsberg. Here are the numbers, 631-888-8811. If you'd like to reach us instantly through IM, you can contact us at Signs of Life Radio. Well, our next guest is really has a wide variety of experience in the world of metaphysics and science. Dr. Hastings is the former dean of faculty at the Institute for Transpersonal Psychology in California and past president of the Association for Transpersonal Psychology, who will hopefully explain exactly what that is. He's also had a wide variety of studies of altered states, including dream work, also channeling, remote viewing, hypnosis. He's written many books, and we are very pleased and honored to welcome Dr. Hastings to Signs of Life. Good evening, Doctor.
Hello, Angelina. I'm happy to be with you, and hello, Bob and Phran.
Hello. I love your voice. He's got a great radio voice. It's wonderful. He does. It's very wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. There are so many things that we can talk about with your experience. Can you first maybe hit upon the Psychomanteum chamber? A lot of people aren't really clear exactly how it's used for science and research, and really your wonderful studies into it. So, what is a Psychomanteum?
Well, let me tell you about the Psychomanteum that we've developed. This is a quiet booth that's the size about half the size of a hallway, and it's covered with dark curtains so that no light gets in. It's lit by a 7-watt bulb, and it's designed to be a place where people can sit and reflect or meditate or go inside. We have a mirror at one end for people to look at, but it's tilted so you don't see your face. It's just like a reflective surface that reflects the darkness of the room, and a chair that the person sits in. We're using this Psychomanteum booth as a way of helping people deal with either recent bereavement or long-term bereavement. And we've had very powerful results from it.
Now, is it true that this concept of a psychomanteum goes way back in history?
Well, it goes all the way back to ancient practices of mirror gazing and shamanism, the very ancient practice of indigenous peoples. The Greeks had a version of it with oracles. So we think that there's a long history of gazing into reflective surfaces like mirrors or bowls of water or liquid to focus your attention on in a way so that you go into a mild change of consciousness, and people then have experiences sometimes of remote viewing or speaking with people who have died or getting insights about themselves. And the modern version of this is the crystal ball.
Oh, okay.
Crystal balls were used for this, and they show up in cartoons and in movies and
Sure.
so on. But if you remember the Lion King, the young lion is taken to look into a pool to see his future.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the same idea. We still have this. And think of mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all.
That's very true. That's very true.
So, there's a history of this. So we feel that in using a mirror, it really draws on this very ancient practice and is a way of exploring perhaps the depth of consciousness.
Now, has science been able to, at least, with your work, have you been able to determine whether it's actually a better vehicle, or for lack of a better word, an oracle for the other side to reach us, or is it that our state is physically changing?
I think we are the ones who are, this is like kind of a sensory deprivation experience. You're sitting in a quiet room, you're not disturbed, it's dark so you don't have to look around, and this helps you go into it's sort of like a reverie, or we have that word reflection time.
Right, right.
So I think the people who go through say that it is a change in consciousness, and we since we're doing this as research, do questionnaires and interviews and so on, and say that this indeed was a shift in consciousness for them, in which they had more inner imagery, or in which they saw lights moving in the room itself. So we're pretty sure that the room itself has some effect, and I don't mean to claim that it's some mysterious effect. I think many people can go into these reflective states given the opportunity, the training, and the time and space away from the stresses of their life.
Do you, so far in the research, have you come up with any conclusions as to the percentage of people that report some sort of extrasensory experience? Is it a large percentage? Is it a small percentage? I know that there are different types of experiences. Some might see lights and shapes. Some may, as you say, see distant places. Have you reached any conclusions yet?
Yeah, we do some pretty careful tracking of people's experiences, and we ask people to, when we're doing it for healing bereavement, here's what we find. We ask people to think of somebody who has died that they still have some feelings of grief, sadness, guilt, or even anger or resentment about. Somebody where there's unfinished feelings or unfinished business. So they come in wanting to make a contact, and we talk with them initially so that they feel comfortable. We ask them, who's the person you'd like to contact? When did they die? And what was your relationship to them? What are your feelings about them? And we ask them, if you had a message to give them, what would be that message? And if you could hear from that person, what would that message be like? So we're asking people to reconnect with the feelings that we push aside, or that we don't let ourselves feel, or that we are overwhelmed by. Our Western culture kind of says you shouldn't grieve for very long for somebody who's died. You should get on with your life. But we don't find people do that. They remember somebody who's died. They're still a part of their life, just as you've said. So we try to give them a chance to reconnect with those feelings and be honestly okay to feeling grief. And then they sit in the Psychomanteum booth for not very long, maybe 45 minutes. And it's quiet and it's peaceful, and they tell us that. And of the last 100 people that we've taken through, 64 of them felt they'd had some kind of connection with the person who had died.
Wow. Dr. Hastings, it's Angelina, Diana. I have a question for you. Most sitters say when they go to a medium and they have the experience of connection with a loved one, somewhat report, from my experience and from what I've heard from other mediums, that after that experience of connectivity, they walk away from the medium and they feel somewhat more connected.
Yes.
Excuse the technical difficulty right now. We don't know what's going on. But maybe
Spirit.
Maybe it's spirit. They feel more connectivity afterwards. Now, do you find somehow that after someone has had time in the Psychomanteum, that after leaving the Psychomanteum, that they've had more connectivity because of that one experience?
Absolutely. You know, being able to feel that you've had a contact or a connection or feeling the presence of the person. And often our sitters get very specific information that relieves concerns that they have. And I know mediums can get that kind of contact and that kind of transmit that kind of communication also.
Yes.
And you know, as you know, after somebody has died who's close to you, you will often in the next 6 months maybe have a contact with them in a dream.
That's true.
Or hear their voice or feel their touch. And these are very reassuring. It used to be that psychiatrists and psychologists would think, oh, this is wishful thinking and so on. Whatever you want to count it as, this is extremely reassuring to people. And we have the same effect with the Psychomanteum. People get into conversations with their loved ones, and often these are mental. Sometimes they feel that there's the presence of the person simply in the room. And we get people who have the familiar smells of the person who's died. Like one person smelled her grandfather's pipe smoke. And another one, she said, well, I was in my mind's eye, in my imagination, I found myself in my grandmother's kitchen. We were baking bread, and as we rolled the bread and baked it, she answered all my questions. And she said, and then I smelled my grandmother's face powder that she used.
Wow.
So you can imagine how people feel reassured and reconnected. The person's dead, but they're not out of the relationship.
Now, if there's anybody listening to this, not everyone has access to a Psychomanteum, but I'm wondering if someone did, what would be, in your scientific opinion, the right time to go into one? Because I know mediums have a certain feeling sometimes when it's maybe a good or maybe not a proper time to see a medium right away, because the grieving process is really a separate process from mediumship. So do you take this into account when you do your scientific studies of who is maybe the right subject to go into a Psychomanteum? And also, second part of the question, if someone's listening, when is the right time for them to consider going into one?
Well, let's say that there are many ways of facilitating a communication with someone who has died. So that it's not limited to the Psychomanteum or a medium. Many people have spontaneous connections, as talked about, in dreams and so on. And so it's not so much. Let me tell you the kinds of persons that we see here in the Psychomanteum. They tend to be more feeling people than thinking people. They often are very good cognitively, but their heart is more the center of their life. And those are the kinds of people who really feel the need for a connection. So maybe that's why we see them. If you are stressed, that's probably not the time to go in. If your life is busy and you're doing things every minute and it's hard to find time, that's probably not not a good time to try to add something else to it. We feel that you need a few months before you go through our process anyway, like you need about 6 months before all of your feelings have settled, you've sorted out the situation, you have got your regular life perhaps in a little better shape. And occasionally we've taken people through who the death has happened just a month or so before. They don't seem to have as much success as when people are ready to stop, think about it, and get back in tune with the situation.
Could be that the grief is blocking them to some degree.
So,
Now, have you ever had a medium go into a psychomanteum?
We've had several people who, not who are working professionally as mediums, but who have mediumistic abilities. And have used them privately, let's say, personally.
And are their experiences?
They do very well.
I was going to say, are their experiences different or the same?
They sit there and they say, "Oh, I see what this is," and then off they go.
Oh, okay.
They simply tune into mediumistic, and this is helpful. They're not distracted. They don't have to answering the door or the telephone or being interrupted by everyday occurrences. So they can simply let themselves open to this way. We think of the psychomanteum as a little bit like a portal or a doorway.
Yeah. Dr. Hastings, I know that...
aware of it, there may be contact going on at a deeper level.
Yeah. Voice.
Now, you had another question, didn't you? What was the second?
Well, your voice was going in and out a little bit.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. We... I know it's not your voice; it's just the phone connection. I know that you had written a book entitled "With the Tongues of Men and Angels: A Study of Channeling," and you've done extensive research in channeling. And for those listeners who may not be familiar with the term, can you explain exactly what channeling is?
Yeah, channeling is a fairly recent word that means receiving information from a source outside of your conscious mind and bringing through that information, ideas, messages. In the earlier days of mediumship, mediums would very often do this with people, the beings on the other side who spoke to them. Sometimes the spirits of those who died, and at other times these beings weren't necessarily people who had lives on Earth. In recent times, there's been a revival of this kind of transmission, not so much in a mediumistic way, but as in a way that's very similar to the old prophets and the oracles of Greece and ancient times, bringing messages from teachers, from ascended masters of metaphysical space and so on. In other words, being from the other side. At least that's, in my book, I said you can't always tell whether these beings are being constructed by your own mind, own subconscious, very often, or whether they are coming through with messages that really come from another dimension. Sometimes you don't know. And so I think you have to use some educated judgment in listening to these messages. Some are perfectly trivial, and some of them are extremely intelligent, wise, and so on. The ones that people might have heard about are Seth by Jane Roberts, and The Course in Miracles, which came through a psychologist named Helen Schuckman, and Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, or is it Donald Neil Walsh. And these are all kind of channeled messages that at least appear to come from a dimension or a space that's outside of our own personal identity, and often they're very worth attending to, and they've brought quite a bit of wisdom into into the world, and we certainly need wisdom now.
Yes, we do, and it's very fascinating. We're speaking with Dr. Arthur Hastings on Signs of Life Radio, and we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll speak more about maybe some of the studies of altered states that the doctor has delved into, and maybe even if you have questions about dreams, because he's also done some study work there. We'll be right back with Dr. Arthur Hastings on Signs of Life Radio.
With the Nationwide Insurance On Your Side experience, you'll enjoy quality insurance protection, personal service, and our signature blue ribbon claims. Guaranteed fair, guaranteed fast. More than just a source for quality insurance, our agents are a part of the community. After all, local service is our policy. They're trained to listen, explain, and offer individual solutions as unique as the clients they serve. Contact your local Nationwide agent today. You deserve a faster, more convenient way to meet your insurance needs. That's why we're here. Nationwide really does provide an on-your-side experience. Guaranteed.
To find out how much you can save on your auto, home, or business insurance, call us at 516-766-4025. 516-766-4025.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliated companies. Life insurance issued by Nationwide Life Insurance Company, Columbus, Ohio.
I would like to introduce you to the Forever Family Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide a forum where individuals and families who have suffered the loss of a loved one can turn for support, information, and hope. We believe in the continuity of the family, even though a member has left the physical world. The Forever Family Foundation is a joint effort of scientists, research mediums, and interested people who support the premise that life does not end with physical death. We wish to prove that the bond of the family cannot be broken even by death. We invite anyone who's trying to cope with the loss of a loved one to contact the Forever Family Foundation at 631-425-7707. That's 631-425-7707. Or you can find us on the web at foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
Has your marketing pitch been missing the strike zone? Maybe you need a new player to help your marketing efforts. At LNRproductions.com, you'll find a team that can give your broadcast advertising the winning edge. L&R Productions has produced award-winning jingles, radio, and television commercials for many businesses just like yours. Radio and television advertising work, but you need the right game plan. Make sure you're getting the most out of your ad every time it airs. www.lnrproductions.com. We'll throw strikes for your business every time.
After-death communication is an accepted occurrence in many cultures throughout the world, but for many others, proof of this phenomenon is essential, and research shows that contact helps move people through loss and grief. The Sign Registry allows people to register signs that they, after passing, plan on communicating to specific loved ones. Contact the Forever Family Foundation at foreverfamilyfoundation.org or go directly to thesignregistry.com.
Welcome back to Signs of Life, brought to you by the Forever Family Foundation.
And I'm your host, Angelina Diana, along with Bob and Phran Ginsberg. You're listening to the Signs of Life program brought to you by Forever Family Foundation. You can learn more about the foundation by logging on to www.foreverfamilyfoundation.org. We've had a very intriguing show so far with Dr. Arthur Hastings, who has written many books, one of them being Health for the Whole Person, which is an award-winning book, by the way, on holistic medicine. So his wide variety of experience from delving into research of altered states, working with a psychomanteum chamber, as well as channeling, is certainly a very intriguing guest. So please give us a call at 631-888-8811. Dr. Hastings, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you.
And certainly a pleasure to have you. Bob, you have a question from an IM person.
Well, before we get to that, I had a question. I know that we have an instant message from Kathleen that Phran will read in a minute. But I know that most of your research has been focused on the implications of altered states of consciousness. And I'm just, I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you reached any personal conclusions as to the mechanism that allows this kind of communication to take place? I mean, for example, is it a sender that's emitting signals to a receiver? Is it some sort of mind entanglement? I mean, have you reached a conclusion in that regard?
The model that I have is that we are in some ways like radio receivers or television receivers, and messages are around us, but in a field or in a not quite, I wouldn't say like radio waves, because we know that the mind doesn't work that way, but like magnetism, so that if we tune our minds to a particular state, and that usually is a quiet, receptive, inner peaceful state, then when the noises of the outer world and our thoughts are quiet, we're more sensitive to being aware of information that's available to us, whether it's the consciousness of another person or whether it's factual information in the environment. I've done a lot of research, and some of that research has been on extrasensory perception and remote viewing, as it's sometimes now called. Right. And it's really clear that the mind can, to some degree, be almost any in the world, or probably in the universe, though that's a little hard to establish. But the success of remote viewing and other ESP types of awareness is very well established now. And while many people are still hesitant to accept it because of a variety of reasons, I suppose, it nevertheless operates very well. And it's been studied by the United States government as well as private psychological laboratories. So I think part of it, Bob, is that the mind in the right state can get information or receive those kinds of impressions, and there must be some kind of tuning mechanism to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's not just mental. There is something in the sensory world that can be contacted. For example, in remote viewing, people are not describing spiritual realms. They're describing actual geographical locations that might be many watt miles away. So there is something that can form a link in the mental state with the physical reality, as well as the spiritual reality. I kind of think of this as certain dimensions, you might say. There's a physical dimension that we tend to live in and experience and learn about. There's a psychological dimension that's our own consciousness experience, and it's very different from the physical dimension, but they're linked so that the two can interact. And I think the same thing must be true with what we could call the spiritual or the transpersonal realm, that there is a dimension there that has its own reality, and yet we can, with our mind in certain conditions, move into connection with that reality. So that's a very rough model, you understand, but that's how I think of it.
Doctor, I have a question from Charles from Springfield. His question is, do you recommend people who have lost someone to create their own psychomanteum?
Oh, yes. I think that's a very, very good question, isn't it? Because it's very practical. I think that's a good idea to give yourself an opportunity to do that, because it helps you get in the right mood, in the right state of mind. And let me tell you just a little bit how you would do that.
Thank you.
Let's say you have an end of the hall or a closet that's not being used very much. See if you can make it dark. Maybe you can hang dark curtains on the wall. You might want to paint it if you want to paint up your house. Or maybe you can just sit in there with the lights out or in a dim way, or a candle, so it's just a small amount of light. Sit in a comfortable chair. This is not where you learn by pain. You get into this comfortably, and sit there when you don't expect to be bothered or interfered with. Turn off the phone, shut the door, tell your friends to stay in the other room and leave you alone, and let yourself reflect on the person who's died. Bring back memories. Remember the times you've spent with them. Remember what they looked like. Remember the feel of them when you were with them. And this works, by the way, for your grandmother you may never have met. You remember her picture. You remember what people have told you about her, and so on. And then if you have things to say from your heart, from your feelings, from your thoughts, say them aloud or in your mind. Just say, Uncle Bill, I really miss you. Whatever it is. If you weren't there when he died and you feel bad, you can say, I feel so bad that I wasn't there when you died. I wish I had been there. And keep talking, but then be quiet for a while. And if you have a question, you might ask it. And it's not unknown for an answer to come into your head, an answer that you maybe thought of, but weren't thinking of it at the time. And so you may have a dialogue. Just you say something, and you allow thoughts to come to you that may come from one of your parents, or your child, or a loved one or friend who's died. Carry on a conversation, and my suggestion is people will often think, well, how do I know I'm not making this up? Well, go ahead and do it anyway. That's not the question at this point. You decide afterwards. We don't guarantee that what people experience is going to be the loved one that they have lost. On the other hand, we let them make up their own mind. And you should do this with the medium also.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Perfectly reasonable,
Exactly. Now,
but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try it.
Right, exactly. And now my question to you is, after someone has that experience in the psychomanteum, has your research shown that perhaps when they're in the altered state of dreaming, that they get the answer that they asked for in the psychomanteum? Have you found that?
We've had some very interesting things. And one woman said she through the psychomanteum, and her son had died 7 years earlier. She went home. She felt she'd had some contact. And here's what she said. She said, I had one very powerful dream. It started as a recurring dream that I've had many times since Nick died. But the ending was very different. It ended with a very strong sense that Nick was okay, that he was fine, and would always be so.
So could it be that her dream was him trying to establish contact, but she didn't see it that way? She went into the psychomanteum, raised her vibration, and then got the answer.
Yep.
Wow.
Her mind was sensitized and now more open. Yeah,
Isn't
I think
that interesting? Now, in the little time that we have left, since I brought up the subject of dreams, I understand that you've done some research in non-drug altered states, and dreaming is one of them. I do have a question for you. In the metaphysical world, a lot of people talk about astral traveling, and that when you do sleep, the guard dog or the conscious mind is sleeping, and that some people feel the spirit or your conscious mind actually goes to another dimension or visits many other places. What has your research shown, and what are your feelings on that?
I get reports, and I collect them from people who've had this kind of astral projection or out-of-the-body experience. And it often happens in sleep. It can be cultivated so that it's more likely to happen. And it's as though in the sleep state, your mind is not so completely connected to your physical body, your physical state. So it's as though some dimension of your mind shifts consciousness and is located in a different place from your body. Often this happens spontaneously, and sometimes to people who've never heard of it and haven't been expecting it. And here they are, they sort of floating at night, and they're looking around, and they seem to be floating up near the ceiling, and they look down, and there's a body in their bed, and they look closer, and it's them.
Yes.
Well, this usually shocks them.
Right.
They pop back in their body.
Right.
But if they've done it more than once, they begin to say, wait a minute, there's something going on, and out-of-body state.
Right.
Now, sometimes they can they can learn to travel in it, and sometimes go to what seem to be other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the reports on these that I get are that they are, for example, they may go to a place where it's like they're in a school or something. They're getting taught something at night in their dreams, and now they happen to be remembered. And sort of one of my friends calls that great school in the sky.
Now, have you heard of experiences of subjects actually when they're coming out of the feeling of astral traveling that they're floating above the bed, and then they feel their actual, what I feel it's like your spirit body going back into your physical body?
Yeah, they feel like they're in a spirit body. You know, they may even actually be able to sort of visually look at it and see it.
Mm-hmm.
Although after you've been out of the body for a while, it seems to be the case that body is kind of a convenience, just like clothes, and change and shift it so you can go through walls, for example, or float. Yeah, they will be floating above their bed, and then they feel themselves being pulled back into their body.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that it's always amazing to me. People have such personal evidence. You know, we've certainly heard of many near-death experiences where people recount visiting loved ones. We have evidential readings from mediums. We have dream visits that are extremely real. But then, you know, you always have those questions of, am I crazy, that keep seeping in, you know? And then why do you feel it's so hard for so many to accept the evidence that they've gotten?
Well, one of the things that I tell our students at the school where I teach, the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology in Palo Alto, California, what I tell them is if somebody comes into them in a therapy setting, many of our students are clinicians, family therapists, clinical psychologists, and they tell you a story about, you know, I felt I was out of my body, or I had this premonition that my brother was going to have an accident, and sure enough, he slipped and broke his leg. I tell them, even if they don't say anything to you, tell them they're not crazy.
Right.
Because we have documentation of these experiences. They are natural. They're normal. In many cases, we don't have a theoretical explanation, but we know they occur, and they are not abnormal or pathological. They are just part of our human potentials that we probably haven't developed. But I think to then say, why is it that they are taboo or hesitant? In the first place, they're a bit scary because they're not bound by the laws of the physical world, and we're used to thinking, getting information in a normal way. So to have it come in a somewhat unfamiliar way is a bit scary. A second thing is there is fear that these are crazy, that there's something wrong with you if you're having these, and it's like reality is fractured. If I say you can get information from somebody who's died, that's really against the paradigm of the general Western scientific culture. And I and some of my colleagues who are working seriously in this area, we're in contact with what people actually experience.
Yeah.
We know that there is more going on in the world than normal science talks about.
It's true.
You know?
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of education that we need to do. And these are normal. We want to learn about them. We want to study them seriously. But we can also say these are part of our human nature and our human experience, and they can be validated, they can be tested, they can be studied.
Yes, absolutely. And one last question I have for you that we like to ask all the scientists, that if somehow money came from a wonderful donor and it was an unlimited amount of money and you can conduct one experiment, what would that dream experiment in about a minute's time would you like to perform?
So if I had all the money in the world
exactly.
and could do an experiment.
Yes.
Related to survival of consciousness.
Yeah. I think I would like to find ways to facilitate people's ability to experience this and incorporate these levels of awareness into their lives in not a mystical way, but a practical way as well.
That's beautiful.
So it would be kind of a training training program or a facilitation education. And I know there are many schools and programs that feel they're doing this, offer training, but usually they are on the training end, and they're not doing much research on what really works with this. What are these states of consciousness? How do we learn about them? Those are the directions that I would want to go.
That's great. I love that. That's wonderful. Well, Dr. Hastings, I want to thank you so much for a very informative, excellent, I can't say enough, of an informative hour that you've spent with us.
Well, thank you, Angela. It actually is very nice to be on your show, and I'm glad you're getting an audience for it. This is great.
We are, and thank you so much for your time and your work on behalf of the Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Goodbye.
That was really wonderful.
Fabulous.
I love
Fabulous.
that. He's just very, very, from every aspect of a metaphysical world, he's really very well-versed and his experience. I mean, he's been doing this for quite a long time. Very experienced researcher, so we're so grateful to have him be on the show. Just a reminder to our listening audience that the Foundation is there as a resource for you. And if you do have Internet access, you can certainly not only check out this show every Thursday evening, but you can also look at the archives that we have of the show. And you can also go to www.foreverfamilyfoundation.org to check out the raffle that we have coming up, the Holidays Past raffle. 10 chances to win a personal reading by a certified medium of the Foundation. So check that out. Well, thank you so much for this hour. It's flown by. On behalf of Bob and Phran Ginsberg, the other side, we'd like to thank you for joining us. And remember, your loved ones are just a heartbeat away, and science is going to prove it.